In 2015, Hurst, Texas, the United States, there was an elderly couple, James and Carol Herman, retired for several years, enjoying their lives after they'd spent a lifetime working hard and saving. One afternoon, they were relaxing in their modest suburban home. Their radio was tuned in to The Money Doctor, a Christian financial advice show, and something about the host, Doc Gallagher, caught their attention.
Income. You want to make sure that income lasts the rest of your life. And then
Gallagher, with his warm, friendly voice, spoke about faith, finance, and the importance of securing your future. He was not just any advisor, he claimed to understand the unique needs of retired Christian families. James and Carol felt compelled to call in and schedule a meeting with the man who seemed to have all the answers. Days later, Doc Gallagher visited them in their home, a charismatic figure in a neat suit. He was all smiles and handshakes, talking about how much he loved helping people just like them grow their savings. He even prayed with them, assuring them that God was guiding their financial future. Trusting him completely, they handed over their life savings, believing it was in safe hands. Months passed, and at first, everything seemed fine. But soon, Paul and Linda noticed a few strange things. Their monthly statements looked suspiciously similar. When they called Doc Gallagher, he was no longer the charming man they remembered. He became dismissive, even rude. The man who once prayed with them now avoided their calls. But after doing some digging, they found out that they were not the only ones, and the rabbit hole went much deeper. But the strange thing is that a majority of his victims praised him and defended him. They didn't even dare question his methods or actions. In total, Gallagher took $38 million from his clients. But how could a Christian preacher go from a good guy to targeting the most vulnerable people? Also, how could they be so ignorant to the fact that he is stealing their money in front of their eyes for years? After finishing college, Gallagher traveled to Thailand and learned more about the Bible from a missionary there. When he came back to the United States, he preached in Fort Worth, Texas for a few years. Gallagher and his family moved to Memphis, where he became a securities broker for Dean Witter Reynolds, which was a stock brokerage and securities firm. Later, he came back and worked at A.G. Edwards, which was at the time a financial services holding company. The interesting thing is that Gallagher studied under the Texas sales and motivational speaker Zig Ziglar. Somehow, after becoming religious and joining the world of finance, Gallagher started to see them as one thing. Or at least, he started to see finances as an extension of his Christian faith. So he started giving seminars on the topic like his mentor did. At first, he saw it as a way to help the poor and help them become more financially independent. So, after acquiring all that finance knowledge working for multiple firms, in the early 90s, he founded Gallagher Financial Group in Hurst, Texas. Gallagher was an outgoing personality, so he didn't mind being a host on local Christian radio stations, which eventually led him to host his own show on different radio stations. Later on, Gallagher created the DGI program, which we will talk about in a little bit. However, in 1999, after encountering regulatory troubles, his luck ran out. You see, he was licensed to sell securities, not to give financial advice. As a consequence, he was reprimanded by the Texas State Securities Board for allegedly falsifying records and representing himself as an investment advisor. A couple of years later, his broker's license in 2001 and paid $25,000, reflecting on that this was the turning point for Gallagher from a Christian and finance preacher to a scammer. Regardless of the fact that he lost his license, he still preached about faith and finance on his radio show, The Money Doctor, which he used to sell insurance and investment opportunities, especially to old people. But how was that possible without a license? Well, the way he was able to sell insurance was through people working for him in his office, so he did it indirectly, and this worked great for him for a long time. But to avoid being scammed by people like Doc Gallagher, you need to be financially savvy and learn some business skills. Luckily, you don't have to look far because Skillshare can help you with that. Skillshare is one of the largest online learning platforms, offering thousands of classes led by industry experts across fields like business and marketing, in addition to 3D, 2D, animation, photography, and more. With Skillshare, you can learn how to invest your money in yourself and your own projects instead of giving them to scammers. For example, you can take a look at this class called Accounting Fundamentals by Matt Cooper. This class is designed for people who don't have any background in accounting or finance, so you are more prepared when you invest or have your own business. Skillshare has a ton of other classes for you to explore. Plus, the first 500 people who click the link will get a free 1-month subscription to Skillshare and access to as many classes as they like. Many of Gallagher's clients agreed that he was a good actor. He was a smooth talker who used the faith of his clients to convince them to invest their money. And he targeted old people for the most part because they are more religious and less financially literate. He even wrote a book called Jesus Christ, Money Master. He talked a lot about how he is the friend of the average Joe against brokers who make you broke. He was successful at scamming hundreds of elderly victims because he had a lot of patience. First, he gave good advice and waited sometimes years to start scamming them. When he did, he asked them to invest fast and invest everything because he was trustworthy, or so they thought. First, to gain the trust of his clients, he would bring them flowers, their favorite books, gift cards, and invite them to events. But most importantly, he visited their homes, he ate with them, and prayed with them, which made the experience more personal for his victims. Gallagher told his clients about his DGI program, or Diversified Growth and Income Program. By depositing their money into 5 categories of investment: third-party life insurance settlements, treasuries, fixed index, dividends, and something that is called Investor's Business Daily Formula, he promised them that they could get a 5% annual return. He even promised some victims 8% annual return. At first, they received checks every month, but after a while, clients like James and Carol Herman started seeing that their investment balance was the same after many months, even after many withdrawals. And one of the most important turns of events, Sergeant Steve Richardson, a former TDI fraud investigator, developed an interest in what William Doc Gallagher was doing. For him, his methods raised a lot of alarms, similar in nature to many criminal activities he spent his life investigating. But his suspicions were not confirmed until 2015. He was contacted by a private investigator working on behalf of a family that dealt with Doc Gallagher. Richardson was informed that they received early withdrawal requests from Doc Gallagher client policy, which he didn't have authorization for, and that was highly suspicious. This led Richardson's office to open investigation about Gallagher. After the official investigation started, Richardson noticed something strange in Gallagher's bank account. At the first couple of months, Gallagher was receiving large deposits, like $80,000, $100,000, $250,000, $300,000, and so on. He quickly realized that there is a possibility of a Ponzi scheme taking place. A Ponzi scheme, in a nutshell, is a fraudulent investment operation where returns are paid to earlier investors using the capital contributed by newer investors, rather than from legitimate profit earned through the operation of a business. As more people invest, the scheme can sustain itself temporarily by paying off older investors with new money, creating an illusion of a profitable enterprise. However, it usually collapses when it becomes difficult to recruit new investors or when too many investors seek to withdraw their money simultaneously. Richardson reached out to some of Doc Gallagher's clients to ask them about how he's investing their money and if they had contracts or something that proves he is handling their financials. To his surprise, very few of them had any papers, just because they think he is a man of God and would not do anything bad with their money. To realize the magnitude of the importance that kept Gallagher going and operating his scheme, let's take a look at this example. One woman invested with Gallagher, and later she wanted to make sure that her investment was in safe hands. To her surprise, she received a binder of materials Gallagher gave her that contained a portfolio of his accomplishments and good works. So instead of financial documents, she received press clippings, a copy of a letter from former Governor Rick Perry, photos of Gallagher serving pancakes to the poor, and other stuff. Later, similar to James and Carol, a bunch of other Gallagher's investors noticed that the balance of their money stayed the same over the months and years, even if they withdrew different sums of money from their investment. At that point, it didn't make sense. When Doc Gallagher was questioned about this by James and Carol and other investors, he became defensive and accused them of blackmailing him. Authorities interviewed lots of victims individually, which turned out to be in the hundreds. With the feds involved, they started looking into his properties and financials, like bank statements and checking accounts. With all that mounting evidence, the SEC did some surveillance work to make sure Doc Gallagher was in his office in Hearst, where the Gallagher Financial Group operated. When he entered the building, they got in, changed the locks, and they booted everybody out. Gallagher was arrested on the spot, and he was taken into custody to be further investigated. During the investigations, Doc Gallagher told the authorities that he had what he called the stash house. There he had old matrices, books, and all the stuff he had acquired over the years, but most importantly, they found a big safe. Police were positive they found all the millions of dollars he stole from his victims, but to their surprise, it was empty. In March 2020, Gallagher pled guilty and received a 25-year sentence. But during the sentencing phase, more victims came forward reporting Gallagher and how he destroyed their lives. Later, Gallagher was sentenced to 3 lifetime sentences. Gallagher was imprisoned in the town of Navasota, Texas. He never talked to the press, and the only interview he did was inside the prison. Even though Gallagher destroyed a lot of lives, he still believed that he was helping his clients and that he really cared for them. He believed that he was using his clients' money to invest it and pay it back. But at least he confessed that he had abused the trust that his clients, or victims, had so blindly placed in him. At the end, from the $38 million Gallagher took from his victims, $21 million is still missing.